Well, this is a big effing deal. It's not getting too much press right now, but I think in the coming weeks, people are going to realize how significant, monumental, and important this truly was. Melinda French Gates, the ex-wife of Bill Gates, has decided in the 2024 election to endorse President Biden for re-election. Firstly, I want to thank her for doing so. You know, not all people who have great amounts of wealth are choosing to put democracy, the well-being of the safety of the majority of the citizenry in mind in 2024. Many are using their own personal egos and the opportunity to possibly amass great wealth under the return of Donald Trump as president to do really the unthinkable and support someone like him at this juncture with all that he's done to our nation. Unbelievable. And we're going to remember who the CEOs are that do this. You know, we're going to remember. I'm going to most certainly remember. I wouldn't do any business with any of these cryptocurrency exchanges anyway, because those are racketeer financial institutions in my opinion. So anybody that I see in the crypto sector endorsing Trump, it's like, you know, you're just showing me that you're a scam artist. Like the Winklevoss twins. They're scam artists, straight up. Now I'm not saying you can't dabble in that space. Because you know you've got Mark Cuban over there investing in certain cryptocurrencies. You do whatever you want with your money. But the difference between Mark Cuban and the Winklevoss twins is this. They have an exchange where they rip off their customers, steal their money, leave them hanging high and dry. They just recently did it with IRA Financial. Stole all of these thousands and thousands of people's retirement account money. Yeah, they did it up in New York. Letitia James just fined them $50 million. Yeah, so, you know, when you have people who set aside their ego, aren't selfish, aren't greedy, and care about the republic and the well-being of the vast majority of the citizenry, but have great wealth, it's very rare. It's very rare to find that. And so I want to commend Melinda French Gates for endorsing President Biden. She didn't have to do this. And you can tell she's the real definition of a patriot. Someone who really cares about their country. Yeah. So this is really important for a whole host of reasons. The primary reason Melinda French Gates gave in terms of why she would endorse President Biden over Donald Trump was Donald Trump's stacking of the court to repeal Roe. This is what he did. This is a fact. He knew all of those judges he appointed were going to vote to repeal Roe when a case came before them. And he knew that some bogus conservative organization would sue some southern state and bring a case before the Supreme Court to have Roe overturned. He knew this. He lied to Republican senators like Senator Lisa Murkowski. He had those judges lie to her like they wouldn't overturn precedent. They were questioned about it in their hearings, and they, evaded the question, acted as though they would be, you know, accepting of precedent. And now we're in a situation where, for the first time in our nation's history, our fundamental freedom, a fundamental right, has been taken away from the American citizenry. Yeah. So, her rationale for wanting to not endorse Donald Trump and supporting President Biden is sound. And she said, you know, women have to turn out like they did in the midterms, but even in larger numbers. And they're going to have to secure their rights themselves. It's sad to say this, but a majority male Supreme Court took women's rights away. Yeah. And it's a majority male House of Representatives right now that's not willing to codify Roe. So women are going to have to come out and get their rights back by force. And that force is putting that ballot in that box on November the 5th. Yeah. And I have every doubt that women are going to do it. All across this nation, reproductive care is going to, I believe, be codified into a whole host of different states' constitutions, from Florida to Ohio, Montana to possibly Nevada and Utah. Yeah. So, in terms of financial resources, you know, I'm not sure if Melinda French Gates will contribute politically any type of money to the Biden-Harris campaign. She might. But I think what would be more impactful politically would be to engage women where women are. That to me is much more vital and helpful in terms of ground operation in battleground states than just simply writing, you know, a $40 million check to the Biden-Harris campaign. And I'm really open to investigating and possibly collaborating in Melinda French Gates' new business venture. Pivotal Ventures. Look into that, you all. Especially if you're a woman wanting to crack into the business world, political world, storytelling world. You know, she's setting up something that I think is going to be monumental. And the first thing you need when you're setting up a venture is you need clients. I would welcome being a founding client in something like that, because the sky is the limit, in my opinion. You know, you look at politics. Oftentimes, women's issues, women's economic, their reproductive issues become wedge and cultural issues. Now, we don't debate men and their issues the same way we debate women, because men are the ones primarily legislating these laws, restricting women from doing what they want with their bodies. So, the first thing would be political. And that's her big point. And I agree wholeheartedly. To me, Florida would be a really good state to do a lot of good political work for Pivotal Ventures, especially working with Debbie Marcellus Powell, who's running for Senate. I think someplace like that, working on, the abortion amendment to codify it into the state constitution in Florida, that would be important. So Florida would be a monumental state to really work on reproductive care through candidates and through ballot measures. You could have different grassroots organizations set up. That's what that could set up, that type of money. Or you could work with the existing infrastructure. Things like, Planned Parenthoods in Florida. So that's going to be important. The other thing that's really important is this, and this doesn't get talked about too much. There's a lot of minority kind of venture capital going around out there in the terms of DEI. But there's a fund called the Fearless Fund. Now, if I'm Melinda French Gates and I'm very politically strategic, you just saw what happened with Edward Bloom trying to cock block the money that minority women, primarily black women in America, receive in terms of venture capital. They say when one door closes, another one opens. To me, what I would suggest is the Fearless Fund should reach out to Pivotal Ventures. What would occur? You say, well, all of the clients that the Fearless Fund already has, because they've contributed grants and loans to a lot of women-owned small businesses. All of that would come under the portfolio of Pivotal Ventures. And then once all of those businesses, along with the Fearless Fund, are under the portfolio, you could start doling out even more money than $20,000. And you wouldn't need to have, these Fortune 100 male-dominated, industries kind of, wanting to dole out money in spurts here, there, and everywhere. Because you gotta think, look at Microsoft. They give a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. They give a lot of money to organizations like the Fearless Fund to give grants. But let's face it, Microsoft, they can look and find 50 to 100 black American women in this country. They can give them all $1 million to go and work on digital products, digital platforms, whatever they wanted to do in the digital space. Microsoft could give 100 black women $1 million each to go and do that have the skills and tech to do it. And those women would make Microsoft billions upon billions of dollars from that $1 million. So overnight, Microsoft alone could create billionaires who are black American women. Overnight. In 30 minutes, they could probably do it. And that goes for a lot of these companies. They can just grant the money. But, there's this, real hesitancy in this country to make sure and ensure that women of color and women in general do not get too much of a foothold in the economic sector of our republic. This is a fact. This is why less than 1% of all venture capital funding goes to black women in America. Less than 1%. Think about that. Less than 3% of all venture capital funding goes to any minorities in America. And white women are considered a minority. So they might get about 2% of all venture capital funding. Women in general might get about 2%. The other 97%, 98% goes to all white men and their ventures. And so Melinda French Gates comes along and says, you know what? We need to level the playing field. Women need to have access to capital too. And that's all the Fearless Fund was saying as well. Primarily women of color. If you go and look at the Fearless Fund and who they're giving out grant money to, it's not just simply black women. Edward Bloom was being disingenuous with his argument. Now, the language of how Fearless Fund was worded in terms of how they were, their business model for receiving the grant money from the organizations that were giving them the money, that language construed it that it was primarily grant money being given to black women. But if you look at their website, they've given money to Latina-owned businesses, indigenous women-owned businesses, Asian women-owned businesses. They've given money to minority women to start businesses. And you know you need money to start, these business ventures. You need to buy equipment. You need to have enough money to do leasing. You need to show that you're going to be able to make a profit. It's a whole lot that goes into this. And we know that, according to the last few years of data with the Small Business Administration, black women in America are the fastest growing small business owners in the country the last 2 to 3 years, but without funding. So we know that most small businesses, they fail within 3 years. And most of these businesses that black women start don't even ever get off the ground because they just don't have the funding available. We would never have, Slutty Vegan in Atlanta. That was a business that was given grant money by the Fearless Fund. And that's a whopping, soaring success to the point where they need to, think about doing franchising and opening up a Slutty Vegan in Seattle. It would be popular, even if it was just a virtual kitchen kind of situation. But, this kind of thing, you all, it is pivotal. Women do need finances. Yeah. And, if you're going to try to create businesses that are thriving, small businesses that become medium-sized and big businesses, you need capital at every step of the way. You need people to back you. And women don't receive any venture capital funding. So I think the Pivotal Ventures, if they put the Fearless Fund under their portfolio and they carry with them all of their businesses and they worked out a contract, I think that would be a great strategic, economic, and political move from Melinda French Gates. Think about it. You're playing hardball politics in Florida. If you can secure that Senate seat, and plus you pass the ballot measure, and then the Fearless Fund, a hugely popular venture capital fund in Black America. Hugely popular. To the point where Ben Crump is representing them, the attorney. I think if you put them under the portfolio of Pivotal Ventures, you've got Atlanta and Georgia right there. I definitely can see Melinda French Gates as potentially vice president or president one day in this country. I definitely can see her. You know, everybody always says, we need a businessman. We need a businessman. Trump was supposedly a businessman. And he failed the country miserably, horribly, horrendously. He was a grotesque failure. Period. And so maybe what we need is a businesswoman. Yeah. Melinda French Gates is not a politician. She never really dabbled into politics. Sort of kind of is known as a grand philanthropist. Has done a lot of good work in terms of, you know, with public education, women of color and their financial situations in developing nations. I really can see Melinda French Gates getting into politics herself, setting up this kind of situation that I'm talking about. And you know, once if I reach out, you know, I say sometimes I'll reach out to people and I never do. But if I really choose to reach out to Melinda French Gates, I would have something to offer. You're all like, oh, you wouldn't have anything to offer. No, I would have a lot to offer. Because I come with a Rolodex of people too that I know. I don't necessarily work with all the people I know, but I know them. And I could say, hey, you have expertise in X, Y, Z, right? Pivotal Ventures is looking to hire people potentially with expertise in X, Y, and Z. So what I would do is I would be the plug in. Melinda French Gates would need a portfolio of a whole host of different people with a whole host of different skills, primarily women. And what do you think I know? You don't just think that, you know, I don't know what you think, but I know people with expertise in every field, extreme, precise expertise, who are women. And some of these women, I don't even think Melinda French Gates knows about. Some she might. You know, in the business world, they know business people. So, of course, she might know Mackenzie Scott and things like that. You know, some politicians. But I'm talking about professional women who roll up their sleeves, do a good job in the tech field, who do a good job in cooking, social media influencers, lawyers, professors, scholars, engineers, you name it. I know. So I think, you know, that would be something that I would try to render my services to as an outside advisor, potentially. I don't know how much I would ask for in my contract. That would be negotiations between myself and Pivotal Ventures. I don't know what type of... I would probably operate off of a retainer. Because, you know, with me, the way I would work, you might not see the progress right away. But eventually you would, for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I could have easily been a financial advisor. I just didn't go into it. It wasn't for me. Yeah. But I could have easily done it. Yeah. It's a certain skill set you have to have. And then not only be a financial advisor, I'm really good at talent acquisition. This is something a lot of people are not good at. Talent acquisition. Look into it. I find excellent and superb talent, up and coming. Nobody's heard about them. And voila, they just pop off. Yeah. Talent acquisition. I'm really good at that. So if you blend financial expertise and counseling along with talent acquisition, how much do you think I'm worth? Yeah, quite a bit. So I might pitch something to Melinda French Gates after the election. I wouldn't want to do it before because my focus is on firing Trump again in 2024. That's going to take up the bulk of this remaining year doing so. It's sad that I have to, sacrifice almost an entire year to stop this clown and buffoon from becoming president. But it is what it is. But after that, oh boy. Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about reaching out. And she's speaking my language. Melinda French Gates, that is. She said the reason she wanted to start her own venture firm is because she's tired of the bro culture in all of these different industries and sectors in America. And I haven't talked about it too much, but I have talked about toxic masculinity. And that's one of the biggest problems in all of these industries. This toxic masculinity. You look at SpaceX, where you have a whole host of employees who are now suing Elon Musk for creating a hostile working environment, sexually harassing the female employees, and nothing being done. Now, if something like that is happening at premier world-class, organizations like SpaceX with highly professional women, and they're being sexually harassed at their workplace by their colleagues and their supervisors, and nothing is being done, well, I can see why Melinda French Gates would want to start Pivotal Ventures. I'm all on board. We do need to pivot away from the toxic bro culture. Yeah, look at Silicon Valley. It's the same thing. I mean, with Twitter, I will say this. There was a move to have a lot more diversity in terms of who was working for Twitter prior to Elon Musk. But it took, a long time to get to that point. And then that didn't last all that long because Elon Musk bought the organization and fired all of the, people who had diverse backgrounds. Yeah, he fired all of those individuals and didn't pay them either. According to their lawsuit, the former CEO of Twitter is suing him, along with the top echelon of the company. They say he didn't pay them their severance packages. And he did that globally too. Twitter had staff in Ghana. All the staff in Ghana were fired and they weren't paid. Yeah. So it didn't just happen in America. But, this is the type of thing that I think is necessary and important at this point. You look at the WNBA, how big that's getting now because of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and Cameron Brink. Something like Pivotal Ventures, I would advise that they buy the WNBA media rights. They say it's worth about $200 million. Well, I would call up Oprah and Venus and Serena Williams and some other athletes who have a lot of money, and I would buy the WNBA media rights in totality, put it under Pivotal Ventures, part of his portfolio. That way, any profits that women's sports generate go back to women. That to me is true equality. Because men and their sports generate a whole host of income by the billions. And almost all of that money goes back to men. Yeah. So we don't, and even in the women profession, most of that money that's generated in the media right now for the WNBA, it doesn't go to women. It goes to men. So this is why we need kind of venture firms like Fearless Fund, like Pivotal Venture. Women need those things in mass. We've been needing them, you know. A lot of times people don't understand this about America, especially younger people. People younger than 45, they don't understand this. Women did not have total rights and freedoms in this country until the 1970s when black Americans were granted their civil rights. That's when all women, indigenous, Latina, black women, were allowed to vote. From 1920 to 1970, only white women could vote in America. Black women, Latina women, indigenous women, they couldn't vote up until 1970. So you have the case that women weren't allowed to own and operate their own individual checking and savings accounts in America until the 1980s. You couldn't divorce your husband without his consent until the 1980s. So this whole notion that women have just been, able to do whatever they wanted to do, had total, complete autonomy over their bodies and their economic prosperity. For the majority of American history, that's not the case. So this is why women are economically behind men in terms of how much net worth and capital they have. This is why the Fortune 100, Fortune 500 businesses are all owned and operated by men. That was how it was structurally designed. So, I'm in favor of the Equal Rights Amendment being added to the Constitution, the ERA. We've got to do a lot of things. And that's why this election is so important. And that's why it's so important, because there's a lot of things that got to get done in a short order of time, to be exact. So you all, I would say if you're a female-owned business or a startup, look into partnering and collaborating with Pivotal Ventures and Melinda French Gates. Ignore all of that stuff about Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, vaccines. Ignore all that bullshit. Let me tell you something, women. Men, they talk all that shit. But talk is cheap. Money talks and bullshit walks. They talk about how, this and that and corruption. But the money manages to stay in their wallet, right? So, don't fall for the okie dokie. Because what they'll do is they'll come and, try to air your dirty laundry out in public as a woman. try to attach her onto Bill Gates and everything he did. And she's her own person with her own venture firm now. And if you're an ambitious woman, young lady in American society, and you really are skilled at certain things, I would most certainly recommend you reach out to that woman. Period. Period. Pivotal Ventures is going to be monumental, in my opinion. It's going to do a lot of great work. Lots of great work. So, you know. And then what you do is you work on somebody for a long period of time. You learn the ropes. And then you branch off into a niche area that they might not want to delve into. And you develop a business that's ginormous just like they did. This is how men did it with their Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies. Everybody works for IBM. Then IBM, people in IBM, the executives, they make a Google amount of money. They want to start their own firm. They want to start their own telecom industry. Yeah, this side works. And so women have to do that too. They have to collaborate. And they have to innovate. And they have to work together. You know, there's been orchestrated effort to keep women, catty and fighting amongst each other. Even down to the media making up stories. Give you an example. I was reading a story not too long ago where the narrative, the way they had written the story and crafted it, they had pitted Taylor Swift against Billie Eilish, saying that Taylor Swift was out to ruin Billie Eilish because Billie Eilish released her record just recently, and Taylor Swift released hers this year as well. And she keeps, putting out new tracks. And they're saying that she put out a new track right around when Billie Eilish's record came out. And her track did better than Billie Eilish. So according to this story, she did that on purpose to hurt Billie Eilish. Now watch this. Here's where it gets insidious. Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish haven't argued or said anything about this. The story goes further and says their fans, certain elements of their fan base, allege that the artists are doing this to each other. So they're saying Billie Eilish fans are going after Taylor Swift fans. But yet the story was that Taylor Swift did something to harm Billie Eilish. Couldn't be further from the truth. But see, this is how they weave and concoct stories and narratives to pit women against each other. Same is true with the WNBA, what you all are seeing this year with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. That's utter and complete bullshit. And good on these two young professional women for not taking the bait. Look, Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire played baseball in the 90s. I remember this. One played for the Chicago Cubs, the other played for the St. Louis Cardinals. And they both were home run sluggers. Now they said that Sosa and McGwire were juiced. Who knows? Who cares? Because anytime they played, the stadiums were packed. And everybody went with a baseball glove to try to catch the home run if Sammy Sosa or Mark McGwire hit one. And generally they would hit about 3 per game between the two of them. So that was intense competition, right? You never heard that Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa didn't personally like each other. You never heard rumors that they were jealous about what they wore to the pregame or the after show. You never heard any of this shit. They just kept it to a competition. between baseball. Who could hit the most home runs? Now with Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, they're trying to act as though these two young ladies personally dislike each other. And all they are competitors. One plays for the Indiana Fever, the other plays for the Chicago Sky. And they want to win when they play against each other. What any competitor would want. And yet you hear them trying to constantly pit these two women against each other. Constantly. Every time the media, creates a story, it's got to be Angel Clark versus Caitlin. Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark. No. I hear more about, the supposed beef between the two than how they're doing statistically. And wouldn't you know, for rookie seasons, both of them are in the top 10. They're both doing extremely well for their rookie seasons. There's all this talk, negativity about both of them. But both of them are doing extremely well for their rookie seasons. Know that. That's a fact. And so this constant needing to pit women up against women so they, don't focus on, getting their bread up, so to speak. This is well orchestrated. You have to understand the media is male dominated too. So these stories feed into kind of a psychological bias that people have. That women can't be competitors. They have to be mortal enemies. They can't collaborate. They can't be business partners. This all feeds into, misogyny. Yeah, in this country. Feeds into that. So this is one of the things I'm really proud about. Melinda French Gates and Pivotal Ventures, I believe, is going to partner with a lot of great organizations across America. A lot of great women are going to have phenomenal ideas, and they're going to work with Pivotal Venture to keep those ideas off the ground and up and running. It's going to be a wonderful thing. If you're a vegan restaurant and you're queer owned, if you're, into health products, the sky is the limit. And a lot of times those products are going to be cheaper and much more environmentally friendly. Yeah, women-owned products or things that businesses tend to be much more environmentally friendlier than men. Yeah. So, I've got a whole bunch of ideas. Partnering with people all the way out in Africa. Because there's a lot of ideas. I don't want to give all my ideas out, I have to talk in private. Because these ideas, this is public, what you all are seeing. But these ideas, these are very substantially weighted, monetarily figured ideas that I would have to get, some type of contract or something concerning. But I'm telling you, the sky is the limit. And now that you have the vehicle, yeah, just need to pile on in. So, yeah, about 1 billion is being put into reproductive care by Melinda French Gates. That's a huge, substantial donation. $1 billion, it's nothing to sneeze at, for sure. So I think this is one of the most pivotal and key endorsements of 2024 today. It's not getting much banter on the media because, it's a prominent philanthropist woman of great wealth. So, those don't get much attention as wealthy men who contribute money, but this is a big deal for the Biden-Harris campaign. hugely important. And I believe it's going to, it's going to have huge, huge return on its investment. Huge. So, much appreciated and much applauded to the great philanthropist, Melinda French Gates, who, you heard it here first, I believe will be vice president or president in this country one day soon. Because I don't know if you all been hearing this, but I have. Some people have said that, in 2028, if it's not Vice President Harris at the top of the ticket, it could be former First Lady Michelle Obama. And some people have said that they believe that, if it's Vice President Harris or Michelle Obama, that it's a strong possibility that Melinda French Gates might be selected as the Vice President. And I'm just saying, some people have said that. Especially in terms of, talk about former First Lady Michelle Obama. A lot of people don't know this, but I know it. Melinda French Gates is very close to the former First Lady. Extremely close. They're good friends. And so, keep an eye out for that. Because I've told you all, it's my belief that President Biden is going to be the last male American president for quite some time. I believe after President Biden, the next 9 American presidents, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, minimum the next 9, will all be women. I don't believe after President Biden there'll be another man president for the rest of my lifetime. Because, I think people want something new, something different, and something better. And you just look at the Republicans and what they're able to produce. Matt Gaetz, who's been rumored to be the heir apparent for MAGA and Trump. Michael Flynn, Sebastian Gorka, Don Jr. That stuff is not appealing. And so I think, you could have something like President Harris, President Obama, Michelle Obama, President Whitmer out of Michigan, President Melinda French Gates. I think it's going to be a succession of women for at least the next 9 presidents. Now, men, will they throw a hissy fit? Well, ask yourself, did women throw a hissy fit? There's been 46 straight men presidents. Think about that. Women have had to deal with 46 men in a row consecutively being president in this country. Men would throw a hissy fit about the next 9 being all women when women have had to deal with 46 men. This is how you can tell that a large portion of sexism and misogyny runs deep in the society. It's a societal problem. When you can't examine and stop, and you want to panic when one black American president becomes president and 45 white men have been president. Or you'll panic when one woman becomes president but 46 men have been president. This is the kind of insanity that befalls a society. So don't succumb to that. That's what I would say. Don't succumb to it. But anyway, you all look into Pivotal Ventures, Melinda French Gates' new business venture. I think it's going to be highly successful, highly prosperous, and I kind of want to get in on the ground floor right away. So I'll probably reach out probably around Christmas. Maybe after the holidays, who knows? Sometime in January of 2025. If all goes well with the election in 2024 and President Biden and Vice President Harris are re-elected, then all systems will be a go to do something with Pivotal Venture, in my opinion. Yeah.